This is day 25 of the 2015 May Painting Challenge. I'm Doc Eon, and I'm continuing to work on Father Mike here. Now, I've started out today by fixing some things. First off, I decided that the little ridges sculpted on his chin were probably not jowls or tentacles or something like that. It's probably a beard. So I went in and painted it the same as his hair color. Second thing I've done is to start highlighting the skin tones. You probably can't see the difference right now because the first highlight was very, very subtle. But I've started out with the base color of heavy skin tone, and I've mixed a tiny, tiny portion of bone white into it. Now I'm going to mix up a second highlight. You know what? I can show you what I'm doing. So this is the first highlight. This is already a little bit of the bone white mixed into it. Here I have some more bone white, and I'll just take a little bit. This is a junk brush that I sometimes use for mixing. I take a bit of the bone white and I mix it into this pile. Get a slightly lighter color. That was not noticeable. Get a little bit more. See, the reason it's very watered down here. And there. You see? I don't know if you can see, but this tone is now slightly lighter than this. Get a little bit more. Now you can definitely see it. That jump in color is noticeable. So I'm going to apply this second color here now to some portions of the face and hands. While I'm doing this, I might talk about the question of the day. The question of the day is, if you could vacation for a week anywhere in the world, where would it be? And I'm just applying it. Okay, I'm gonna have to hold it at what to you guys looks slightly like an angle. Just a little bit here on the fingers. The vacationing. I would want to go somewhere where there's not so many people. You know. Preferably somewhere untouched. Yeah, I know. I sound like a typical backpacker wanting to find unspoiled nature and getting fleeced by people taking advantage of that. But still, you know, honestly, I would like to see the Himalayas. I'd like to go someplace that's where the air is clear and cold and no human beings around. That's what I would like to do. Now you can see I don't know if this comes across that there's any difference at all. It's this sort of thing where you have to build it up very subtly over time. So like maybe the first layer of highlights isn't even visible. But by the time you get to the top highlights, the jump is visible, and then you need to have had those midtones along the way in order to make the transition believable, even if the transition is not, you know, something people consciously perceive. So if it's not there, something will seem off. It will seem wrong somehow. And so, yeah, and you need to put it in there. The process of highlighting a face takes a little while, and you probably don't need to look at all the stages of it. So I'm going to cut to, You didn't see it at all what I did there, did you? I was too close and out of focus. Oh well. Anyway, I'll cut to when this is done, and show you what we get. Oh yeah, watching that back, I realized I was out of focus the whole freaking time, wasn't I? Oh well. Anyway, I've finished the skin tones now. What I did was I highlighted up, and I decided that the final highlights were perhaps a bit too pale, and I did want this guy to be a bit more tan, so I applied a slight glaze of a flesh wash to tone everything down and tie it together. And I've also painted the collar here. I did a base coat of wolf gray, partially as a shade, but mostly just because you can't paint white straight over black. It doesn't work. And then I put a white dot in the middle of it. Now, all that's really left on this guy is the coat. Now, I'm gonna go with a brightly colored coat here. I think I've mentioned that in the 1920s, heck, you know, the first half of the 20th century, colors were pretty drab. Especially men's fashion was really just browns and grays. But priests can be different, because this character is defined as being, his player said that this was a Monsignor, a title that is in the Catholic Church, which means, among other things, that Monsignors wear purple outfits. They don't wear black. And the closest color I've found when looking for reference is this, the magenta. This is the same as the Warlord purple from Game Color, by the way. And now, so Monsignors wear these magenta cassocks, which is what the kind of robes priests wear is called. Realistically, I should perhaps have painted everything that's now black in this color, and then had the coat some normal color, like a black or a brown or a gray or something. But while that could have been realistic, it would have been slightly boring. It would have looked dramatic to have the magenta peeking through from the front view, but looking at it from the side, or the back, or the other side, it would just be a big blob of black or brown. And that's kind of boring. So I've decided to take some artistic license and switch it around and have his tunic and pants a normal black priest color and do the coat magenta. This might be look shocking pink in the end. It might be really a screaming color. I don't know yet. I'm gonna try this out. So I'm gonna put on a base coat, or rather, probably a couple of base coats are going to be necessary because I'll have to thin it down. And I'll get back to you when that's done and we can see what it looks like. After about 3 coats, more on some problematic areas, we have a nice even base coat of this magenta color. Interesting effect, don't you think? It would have been much more boring to have this color on the inside and a black on the outside. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and experiment a little bit with shading this and highlighting. And I'm not going to film my fumbling around trying to find a good recipe. I'll just work until I find something that works, and then I'll come back and tell you about it. And here he is again. You might not see a huge difference because I've gone rather subtle. The thing is with these, when you have such a large area, especially a material that is not very heavily textured either, going really radical with either shading or highlighting doesn't really look very good. It's not very realistic. And especially when the base color is kind of bright, I feel you can sort of let the lighting do natural highlighting for you. I mean, you don't have to put in the artificial highlights with paint as much. So what this is there's some light shading with Carberg Crimson. Actually, I know I've said I don't use washes on cloth, but it's not. I haven't used it as a wash. I haven't drenched it in the Carberg Crimson. I've just sort of used it very sparingly in certain spots, like going into certain folds and then painting over again the parts where it was too much. And I've mixed up some highlights by putting into the magenta a slight amount of squid pink by Game Color. Not all the way. You can see that I've not gone all the way to pink. It's just a mixture. At most a 1-to-1 mixture. And yeah, I kind of like it. I mean, there's some almost pure pink and on the edge highlighting. I've done the buttons, just an undercoat of black and then a dot of gunmetal on them. It went with a dark metal just to contrast the light cloth. And yeah, I think this guy is done. I'm going to put him aside at least for a while. And I'm not going to varnish him right away. Wait until the others are done, so I have time to contemplate whether I like him this way or not. And moving on to the next miniature. I forgot to mention why I used the Carberg Crimson. It's because it contains a lot of magenta, so it's suitable for highlighting magenta. And while we're on the subject of Carberg Crimson, it's the main color I used for this little dude. This is Mr. Bones. Oops. I painted him up as a sort of nasty, grotty, undead Santa. You know, with a bag full of bones instead of presents. He's kind of okay. Anyway, what else have I got started with? I have got started with these two other guys. I've started doing the skin tones here. Don't know how well it comes across on the fingers, on the face. I'm going for a lighter skin tone on these guys. It is, in fact, a 1-to-1 mix of these two colors, tan and elfic flesh, which has produced this sort of pinkish reddish color, a very light but slightly ruddy color. I've also shaded the darker creases like between the fingers with my go-to color for this, which is the Game Ink skin wash. This is very confusing. They call it a skin wash when it is in fact an ink. Inks behave slightly differently to washes. They are more highly pigmented and slightly heavier body than a wash, which is why I like them for doing things like getting into the little spaces between fingers. Anyway, I'm going to continue highlighting up this while I have the color. I'm just going to keep adding a little more of the elfic flesh to make it lighter. And I think that's all I'm going to do today. I'll show you the finished result when I start tomorrow's video. So keep this image in mind and you will see how different they look tomorrow. That's all for today. So, you know the drill. Thumb up, comment, subscribe perhaps, and I will see you tomorrow. This is Doc Eon, signing off.